Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon and welcome to our press briefing. This has been a period of intense diplomatic activity on various fronts. Let me highlight some of the significant aspects here for you. First, as you know, Pakistan is hosting the 48th session of OIC Council of Foreign Ministers on 22nd and 23rd of March, coinciding with the 75th anniversary celebrations of our independence. We are ready in all respects to receive the participating foreign ministers and delegations as our honored guests. The foreign ministers will also join us at the Pakistan Day Parade as guests of honor in a show of solidarity with Pakistan and its people. The administrative and security arrangements for the conference and other events are flawless and are in place. You would have followed the presser by the Foreign Minister on 15th March, wherein he outlined the importance and key objectives of this conference and the singular honor it brings to Pakistan once again as the CFM chair for the next 1 year. The theme of the session, Partnering for Unity, Justice and Development, represents our commitment to foster unity within the Ummah, advance the cause of justice for all Muslim people, and promote prosperity and sustainable development for OIC member states. We will seek to build partnerships and bridges of cooperation across the Islamic world to address the myriad of challenges confronting us and to seize the multiple opportunities that present themselves to promote the collective interests of the Ummah. Prime Minister Imran Khan will make keynote address at the inaugural session of the conference. Apart from addressing the core issues on the agenda, particularly Palestine and Jammu and Kashmir, the conference discussions will focus on key priorities such as countering Islamophobia, recovering from COVID-19 pandemic, and diverse matters of peace and security, economic development, cultural and scientific cooperation, and revitalizing the role of the OIC. The follow-up of the extraordinary session on Afghanistan will also be reviewed. Over 100 resolutions likely to be adopted by the session will articulate OIC's perspective on major contemporary issues. We'll be sharing more details with you in the separate briefing after this. Ladies and gentlemen, now let me turn to a significant achievement of Pakistan's diplomacy under the guidance of Prime Minister Imran Khan. On 15th March, the United Nations General Assembly has unanimously adopted a landmark resolution introduced by Pakistan on behalf of the OIC countries, proclaiming 15th March as the International Day to Combat Islamophobia. This resolution reflects the sentiments of more than 1.5 billion Muslims around the world. This is the first time ever that the UN has adopted a resolution specifically recognizing Islamophobia as a contemporary form of discrimination. Prime Minister Imran Khan was the first Muslim leader to raise the issue of Islamophobia at the UN. You would recall in his first address to the UNGA in September 2019. In his several addresses since at various international forums, the Prime Minister has continued to forcefully advocate the need to effectively combat the scourge of Islamophobia. The Prime Minister has rallied the Muslim world for collective and effective action against Islamophobia. It may be recalled that at the Niamey OIC CFM in November 2020, Pakistan had initiated a resolution calling for the designation of 15th March as the International Day to Combat Islamophobia, and this resolution was unanimously adopted by the OIC. And subsequently, we brought the discussion to New York, where, working together with other OIC partners, we pursued extensive diplomacy and constructive engagement with UN member states, leading to consensus adoption of the resolution by the UN General Assembly. The commemoration of the International Day to Combat Islamophobia will send a clear message against contemporary challenges of racism, discrimination, and violence against Muslims. It will raise international awareness about increasing Islamophobia and anti-Muslim hatred. It will promote the message of tolerance, peaceful coexistence, and interfaith and cultural harmony. Let me state that Pakistan has been a bridge builder on this issue. We want to promote respect for all religions and beliefs, and we continue to advocate global dialogue among civilizations under the ambit of the UN to promote interfaith harmony and understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you would have followed Pakistan's continuing proactive diplomatic outreach and engagement with our friends and partners in recent days. The Prime Minister spoke to EU Council President Charles Michel, the Austrian Foreign Minister Alexander Schallenberg, accompanied by a strong business delegation, is in Pakistan. We had the delegation level talks and the joint press stakeout by the two foreign ministers yesterday. He has also called on the Prime Minister. On 17th March, the Foreign Minister also received His Excellency Major General Bashir Salehi Magashi, Minister of Defense of Nigeria. And the Minister has also called on the Prime Minister. Earlier, on 10th March, the Foreign Minister met Michelle Bachelet, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. The Foreign Minister underscored Pakistan's commitment to the promotion and protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms. The situation in Afghanistan came under discussion. The Foreign Minister also briefed the High Commissioner on the grave human rights situation in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Over the last 2 weeks, Foreign Minister Qureshi has had a number of telephonic interactions, including with Mr. Joseph Borrell, Vice President of the European Commission, State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi of People's Republic of China, the Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation, the Foreign Minister of Hungary, Secretary General of the OIC, Foreign Ministers of Indonesia, Malaysia, Somalia, Germany, Iran, Morocco, and Belarus. Separately, Foreign Secretary Suhail Mahmood received Ambassador Tariq Al-Bakhit, Special Envoy of the OIC Secretary General on Afghanistan, and he also met Mr. Gasper Wieck, Germany's Special Representative. Let me note that in these interactions, apart from bilateral cooperation, various regional and global issues of common interest came under discussion. The situation in Ukraine was one of them. We have emphasized that Pakistan's position on the issue was driven by the imperative of protecting the country's vital interests. Pakistan has taken a principled decision not to be part of bloc politics. We have underlined that Pakistan will only be a partner in peace, not in conflict. Prime Minister Imran Khan had alerted about the adverse consequences of conflict for everyone, especially the developing countries, and that is clearly evident today. Pakistan has also consistently emphasized the fundamental principles of the UN Charter, including self-determination of peoples, non-use or threat of use of force, respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of states, pacific settlement of disputes, and equal security for all. We believe that these principles should be applied consistently and universally. Pakistan remains deeply concerned over the continuing military conflict. We are calling for immediate cessation of hostilities, establishment of humanitarian corridors, and provision of humanitarian assistance, and continuation of talks between Ukraine and Russia, and persistent efforts for a diplomatic solution. We have engaged both Ukraine and Russia, the neighboring countries, key partners in Europe, and others, and are willing to make all possible contribution to reinforce efforts for a diplomatic solution. We have put ourselves in a position to communicate with both sides, and we continue to make our contribution. As you are aware, Pakistan has also dispatched humanitarian assistance for the Ukrainian people, in keeping with our close relations with Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure you have followed closely the grave incident of unprovoked and flagrant violation of Pakistan's airspace by an Indian supersonic missile that fell to the ground near Mia Channu, causing damage to civilian property on 9th March. The flight path of the missile also endangers many international and domestic commercial flights, both in Indian and Pakistani airspace, as well as human life and property on ground. You are aware of the briefing by DG ISPR and DGPR, Pakistan Air Force, of 10th March, and the summoning of the Indian Charge d'Affaires on 10th March to convey our strong protest. On 11th March, Indian Press Information Bureau's Defense Wing issued a statement admitting that a missile was, quote-unquote, accidentally launched from India due to a, quote-unquote, technical malfunction during the course of a, quote-unquote, routine maintenance. Taking note of that statement, our ministry issued a press release on 12th March in which questions were raised regarding India's security protocols and technical safeguards against accidental or unauthorized launch of missiles in a nuclearized environment. The Indian CDA was again called in that day and formally conveyed the government of Pakistan's serious concerns on the Indian press statement. A démarche was also handed over. The grave nature of this incident raises fundamental questions regarding security protocols and technical safeguards against accidental or unauthorized launch of missiles in a nuclearized environment. Therefore, such a serious matter cannot be addressed with simplistic explanations proffered by the Indian authorities. Some of the questions that need to be answered by India include the following. India must explain the measures and procedures in place to prevent accidental missile launches and the particular circumstances of this incident. India needs to clearly explain the type and specifications of the missile that fell in Pakistani territory. India also needs to explain the flight path and trajectory of the accidentally launched missile and how it ultimately turned and entered into Pakistan. Was the missile equipped with self-destruct mechanism? And why did it fail to actualize? And the question, are Indian missiles kept primed for launch even under routine maintenance? Why did India fail to immediately inform Pakistan about accidental launch of the missile and waited to acknowledge till after Pakistan announced the incident and sought clarification from India? Given the profound level of incompetence, India needs to explain if the missile was indeed handled by its armed forces or some rogue elements. We believe that the whole incident indicates many loopholes and technical lapses of serious nature in Indian handling of strategic weapons. Indian decision to hold an internal court of inquiry is not sufficient since the missile ended up in Pakistani territory. Pakistan has therefore demanded a joint probe to accurately establish the facts surrounding the incident. Given the short distances and response times, any misinterpretation by the other side could lead to countermeasures in self-defense with grave consequences. Pakistan therefore calls upon the international community to take serious notice of this incident of grave nature in a nuclearized environment and play its due role in upholding and promoting strategic stability in the region. Let me inform that Pakistan has briefed the P5, European and other countries on this matter. The Foreign Minister has also spoken to UN Secretary General and also addressed a letter to the President of the UN Security Council and the Secretary General on 14th March on this incident. The letter to the Security Council also draws attention to India's persistent, aggressive, and irresponsible actions, its massive arms buildup, as well as its offensive military doctrines and force postures, which pose an ever-present threat to peace, security, and stability in South Asia. The letter also calls upon the Security Council to demand from the Government of India to hold a joint investigation into the missile incident along with Pakistan to accurately establish the facts surrounding the incident. It also demands from India to desist from any further actions that would jeopardize regional peace and security, and also to take measures to provide reassurances to Pakistan and the world community about the security and safety of India's weapons systems and the credibility of its command and control systems. With this, I would like to conclude, and I'm happy to take your questions.